Some people love to give advice and some people can't stand it. Which one are you? My name is Rabbi Yitz Wyne of Young Israel Aish of Las Vegas, and I want to welcome you to Life is Great, where every Sunday morning we get together and explore a new universal value that is derived from Judaism. Good morning. You know, giving and receiving advice is one of the most important aspects of living a spiritual life. Judaism teaches us a remarkable concept. In the first sections of the Talmud, of the oral tradition, the way that Jews view the world, one of the first teachings is to stand up many students. We are told that if we want to be spiritual beings, if we want to be successful people, we have got to learn to put ourselves in a position where we are mentoring others. And at the same time, everybody needs a mentor. One of the basic and most important teachings of Judaism is that everyone must acquire for themselves a rabbi. A rabbi is, in essence, is a mentor. It's someone who can look at you and understand your life in a more objective way. Not always advise you, sometimes just be a sounding board, but many times, yes, giving advice. The interesting thing about giving and receiving advice is that you'll find that some people get very excited about it. They want to give advice. It turns them on, so to speak. It makes them feel important. And yet at the same time, there are other people, they can't stand to give advice. They just kind of feel a little shy and timid, perhaps unworthy of it. But we understand that this skill, and it is a skill, it's an acquired skill of giving advice and receiving advice, can help lead a person to a whole new level of greatness. It's interesting. Sometimes you look at people who give advice, you say, hey, I could do that. That's no problem. Fantastic story in our tradition about a particular rabbi who was known throughout the land as being very wise, very important. And he had an attendant who traveled with him. And one day the attendant said, you know, Rabbi, I know that everyone comes to you because they think you're so wise. And with all due respect, you are a very wise man. But I see what you do. They come to you, they share their problems, you tell them what to do, and they go away and everyone's very happy. Even I could do that. So the rabbi said, okay, next time we travel to a new town, you'll put on my clothes, I'll put on your clothes, I'll drive the wagon, you sit in the back, and we'll tell everyone that you're the rabbi and I'm the wagon driver, and let's see how well you do. He goes, okay, it's a plan. Well, they get in the wagon, they go to the next town. As they show up in the next town, so, you know, the throngs of people surround the wagon, the great holy rabbi is in town, and they turn to the rabbi and they ask him a pretty simple question. However, when you're on the hot seat, even the most simple question is not so simple. And he thought for a moment and he says, you know, that's such a simple question. Even my wagon driver knows the answer to that. Why is giving advice so important? So the first thing we need to know is that when we tell other people what they should do, it clarifies our own issues. See, we understand that knowledge leads to actions, and the right actions lead to goodness in the world. As we've spoken many times before, happy people make the world a better place, and the unhappy make the world a worse place. If a person knows what it means to be happy, and then they share the skill, the wisdom behind being happy, then they make the world a better place in an exponential way. At the same time, if you have a piece of wisdom, but you keep it to yourself, so you know you could be helping the world, but because you're keeping it to yourself, you're limiting the meaning in your life, the impact that you could have on others. And in a certain sense, you're liable for all the people that you could have taught that wisdom and that they could have had better lives and they didn't. So therefore, because Judaism takes an approach that we all have to invest ourselves to the uppermost extent possible of making the world a better place, if the Almighty gives us a piece of wisdom, we have an obligation to share it with others. We share it with others, that gives us pleasure, and in a very real sense, that is the primary way that we make the world better. So the first reason why giving advice is so important is because it helps clarify our ideas when we have to articulate it to somebody else. And the second reason is that it is one of the best ways to make the world a better place. Well, I went over to Coffee Bean and I asked some of you if you like to give advice and what kind of things would you advise people on. And by asking you, we're trying to figure out what the best way is for us to give advice. Let's see what some of you said.
For one, have a stable job. 2, do what you love. And 3, just live.
I would tell them first that to love your fellow man as you love yourself and God. Wherever you may see or whatever it may be to you, that's how you would want to start. Second, I would want to make sure that they understand the value system and the integrity and honesty of whatever your relationship is or whatever you do in your life. And third, that it's not driven by money. It's driven by accomplishment and how you feel.
What are the 3 most important?
To appreciate nature's beauty, that our universe, our Earth, is it really is an expression of God's beauty.
Okay, beautiful.
Okay, well that's one.
That's one.
That's just one.
Any others?
Well, after that, to honor each other and to love each other as you would honor yourself.
All right.
And another one, well after that, and to love all of God's creatures, the animals, just everything.
Beautiful. Okay.
Well, my parents always told me, as long as you're doing what you love, because we see, a lot of people that are successful or whatever, but they don't, seem that happy, so I don't know. I guess that's, a lot of people wanted, I want to do something that, makes a lot of money and is successful, but I don't think you can
I feel like being
happy unless
successful is a really subjective term.
Okay.
I guess, so I feel like everyone else has a different view of what successful means.
Great.
So whatever.
Some people might think success is just paying the bills and
and having a family or something. So I mean, whatever that is, I guess finding whatever is you think is successful.
Okay, welcome back. Let's examine what do we need in order to give other people advice. So first thing you need to know is, what are you qualified to talk on? Not everyone is qualified to talk on everything. I would not go to my accountant and ask him for advice on my car. And I would not advise you to ask me for advice on your car either, okay? There's just certain things that are beyond our knowledge scope. The other day, I was at a wedding and I met a person who was 98 years old. Just speaking with a guy, and I say, how old are you anyway? He says, I'm 98. I said, you're 98. I don't think I've ever met someone that old before. So I asked him, I said, if you had 3 pieces of advice to give to somebody on how to have a successful life, what would you say? Well, so he said, the first thing is live with a moral compass. The next thing he said was treat yourself and treat others like human beings. And the third thing he said is stay away from women because they'll kill you. I think he's the only man in the assisted living home that he lives in right now. He's swarmed with all these 80-year-old ladies all the time. So now we have to know, what are you qualified to speak on? Now you can do that by simply taking an inventory of your knowledge base, of your personal experiences, the successes in your life, and the things that you were unsuccessful at. The other day I went to a party for this happy couple that just got married, and I instructed, there were about 20 people around the dinner table, and I instructed them all to go around and give advice to the newlyweds. Well, there's some people in the room, they've been happily married for 20 years. There are some people, one lady she's widowed, she was happily married for about 51 years. And then there was a fellow in the room, he's been divorced 4 times. So when he got up to give his piece of advice, he says, listen, I'm the last guy to give advice. But I'll tell you, what he said was very wise. See, there's 2 ways to become wise. One way is to go through the school of hard knocks. You can go through just life's experiences, and if you're a thinking person, you'll recognize your successes and you'll recognize your failures and you'll have wisdom. And the other way is, of course, to open up the Torah and learn Judaism and understand the revealed divine wisdom. By going through the 5 books of Moses, by going through Jewish tradition, there's enormous amount of wisdom. As a matter of fact, many, many years ago, I was just a young pup, I was about 20 years old. I was in New York for a little bit, and a friend of mine who was a rabbi said, hey, listen, I'm giving a group, I'm teaching a class to a group of housewives. and I won't be able to make it, but I'm wondering if you could stand in for me last minute. I say, sure. He goes, it's a relationship seminar. You have to give a talk on what it means to be married. And I said, first of all, I'm 20 years old. Next of all, I'm single. Why in the world are you asking me to fill in for you in this group? Or can't I just talk about something else? And he said, well, that's what these ladies are expecting, so that's what you have to talk on. Figure something out. So I had about 2 hours to prepare. So I called up a friend of mine. I said, listen, I know you give relationship seminars. What do you teach over? And then I looked up a few things in some of the books. I sit down, and I start speaking to these 40 and 50-year-old ladies who are all married with children about how to have a good marriage. In the middle of the group, one of the ladies said, excuse me. She didn't call me rabbi. I was not a rabbi yet. I was a young little pisher. That's what I was. She said, you're just a kid. You could be my son. Where in the world did you get this wisdom from? And I said, I'm just teaching Torah. Now, the truth is, there are two kinds of wisdom. There's the book of knowledge, and then there's the experience knowledge. And clearly today, I would teach that class in a very different way. The same basis, because the Torah doesn't change. God's messages in the Bible are the same today as they have been for 3,300 years. But my experience has now given me certain insights, so I can kind of temper some of the messages for the better or for the worse. But the first thing, if you're going to give advice, know what you're qualified to speak on and know what you're not qualified to speak on. The second thing is always give advice for the other person's benefit. You know, one of the prohibitions in the Torah, there are 613 commandments, 248 positive commandments, and 365 negative commandments. But who's counting? One of the negative commandments is don't put a stumbling block before the blind. Now, it's a little odd because who could ever imagine someone, seeing a blind fellow walk along there with a cane and then saying, hey, let me trip the guy. Oh, I'll put out my foot. Who's going to do that? That's sick. But what a person might do is they might advise someone not perhaps in the best possible way. In other words, a person might give advice on what's good for you, not what's good for them. So if you're going to give advice, make sure that you're giving advice for the other person's benefit. Many years ago, before my wife and I moved to Las Vegas, so I was offered a job in a Midwestern town as a rabbi. And it was the rabbi who was retiring called me. He sought me out, called me up and said, Rabbi Wyne, I'm retiring next year, and I was wondering if, I heard from your rabbi, Rabbi Weinberg, that you would be the perfect candidate to be the leader of our community. I said, well, thank you so much. Really appreciate the offer. Researched it a bit, and I called my rabbi. My rabbi said, whatever you do, don't take that job. Don't take that job. So I called back the first fellow who offered me the job. I said, listen, I want to thank you very much. I spoke with my rabbi, and he said I should not take the job. I'm not taking the job. So I appreciate it, not taking it. He said, I don't understand. What do you mean? He said, he told me to seek you out. Why did he tell you not to take the job? Oh, whatever. I said, that's your business. I don't know. Later on, many years later, I met that fellow at a rabbi convention. And he said, we had a nice chuckle over it. I said, so what happened with that? I mean, did you ever figure out why did Rabbi Weinberg suggest me for the job? He said, well, this is what happened. I called him up. I said, Rebbe, why did you ask me to hire Rabbi Wyne as my successor? He said, oh, because, you would be very fortunate to get a person like Rabbi Wyne to succeed you. He said, well, then, Rebbe, why did you tell Rabbi Wyne not to take the job? And he said, oh, because Rabbi Wyne could do much better than being your successor. It's very interesting. If you have a person, and his analogy was sometimes you have a couple. You have a man and a woman. And the woman she's a great gal. So you turn to the guy and you say, listen, if you can get her to marry you, then it'll be a real find. But the truth is the woman could do much better than the guy. So you're going to advise the woman, don't take that. A person has to always advise based on who's coming to you with the question. Always advise knowing who you're speaking to and do whatever's best for them. Okay, let's go to our next topic, which is from whom should we seek advice? Again, there are two teachings from our sages that we are learning from. One is stand up many students, which means put ourselves in a position that we are sharing advice to others and helping other people grow. But before we can do that, we have to first place ourselves in a position that we can learn all of this stuff. And that means, in the words of the sages, is make for yourself a rabbi, a teacher. Find someone who can guide you. And if you have someone who can guide you, then you will be more equipped to guide others. And I went out to Coffee Bean and I asked some of you, who do you ask for advice? Who do you ask advice from?
My parents.
Yeah, my parents. Or close friends. Yeah.
Okay. And what qualifies your parents or close friends to give advice to you?
Well,
they've been in similar situations or something like that.
People you look up to or value their opinion, things like that. I mean, you wouldn't ask somebody that you don't really feel is like in a good position to give you advice.
Okay. How do you know they're right when they tell you something?
You don't.
Yeah, you don't.
You just rely on faith. Okay, beautiful. Thank you.
Maybe it's my older brother.
Okay.
You know, he's always been there like from day one. If I ever have like a girl problem or a money problem or anything, that's usually the guy I go to for anything.
How do you know when he's right?
He's always right.
My son, he's usually right.
What qualifies him to give you advice?
Because he means well. It's coming out of his heart and his mind, and he has a wonderful mind.
Now, do you ever catch him in giving you the wrong advice?
No.
Do you have people that you ask advice from?
Yes.
Okay. And how do you know they're right? Or what qualifies them for you to ask?
Their life experience, things I know about how they lived and what they've done and what they've accomplished and those types of things.
Okay. And if they say something, and how do you know if they're really right or wrong?
Well, first, to the extreme, they're still in the street.
Okay. Just hanging around.
And secondly, you know, they live a life that you can see that they are to a degree happy. They're settled. They're peaceful people.
All right.
They haven't harmed anybody, and they've done the right thing for their life.
This is my advice to you about giving and getting advice. First thing is you need to find someone who you respect. Someone who basically walks the talk. Someone who lives with integrity. The words of our tradition is someone whose inside is the same as outside. In other words, if you look at a person and you say, in this area of my life, this is who I wish to emulate. So then that, chances are, will be a good person for you to seek advice. You know, when a person looks at life, every one of us should have a vision of where we want to be in 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now. And the way to identify how to get there is to look at a person who has gotten there. And if you look into the future for yourself and say, you know, in 5 years, in 10 years, I want to be over there somewhere. Find a person who's made it and then go over to them and ask them, how did you get there? And this is applicable in every area of our lives. If having a good marriage is important to you, find someone who has a marriage similar to the one you would want. And if raising great children or making a lot of money, having influence is important to you, it doesn't make a difference what it is. It's finding someone who's further ahead in the game than you are and has ended up in the place you want to get to. That's the first person you go to. Now, it doesn't mean that someone who did not end up there cannot give you advice. No, they can give you advice. They can tell you what not to do. Again, as our tradition teaches us, who is a wise person? Someone who learns from everyone. The people who have the knowledge and the people who have not the knowledge. That is the first part of identifying who to ask things from. Next thing is understand where you want to go. As Yogi Berra said, if you don't know where you want to go, you probably won't end up there. So we have to recognize, we have to know where we want to go, find the people who've made it there, find the people who live with a sense of integrity, the people who live the way we want to live, and then ask, how did you get there? When we do that, we will have a very, very good roadmap to follow. Okay, stick with us. There's way more to come. In just a few moments, we're going to talk about the Rabbis Inbox. And also, I want to invite you to swing on by a synagogue, Young Israel, Aish of Las Vegas. It's located near the corner of Fort Apache and Sahara, right here in Las Vegas. And I promise we will make you feel very, very welcome at all times. Welcome back to the Rabbis Inbox. This is your opportunity to send me any question you wish. I promise I will reply. Send it to rabbi@therabbishow.com. First question we received was, Dear Rabbi, what if you know that somebody needs your advice but is not asking, or you know they won't listen to you? Should you still speak up? Well, my answer is yes. You got to speak up. You know, life it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. Sometimes you mention an idea to a person. If you say it with a smile on your face, you can probably say whatever you want. Yes, I think you're a real jerk. Oh, it's terrible. Oh, you're a horrible person. You can get away with it. If you say it with a smile on your face, and if you say it with love, as King Solomon says, words that go out of the heart go into the heart. If you're speaking for the best interest of the person, they will not take offense. They will know. They might not listen to you, but they will know that you have no other agenda. And if you're pure in the reason you're giving advice, not because you want to manipulate them, not because you want to control them, not because you want to justify your own actions, but you're saying what's right for them because it is right for them, and you truly believe it, then you should speak up without question. And sometimes a person you can even get into things that are sensitive, like a friend of yours might be marrying someone who you know they should not marry. You can say to them, listen, I want to tell you, I truly believe this. You're making a mistake. If you say it with love, you probably will not ruin the friendship. Okay? And if they got so angry from your advice that perhaps was difficult for them to hear because they did not want to listen to it, they were not asking for it, so chances are it's more of their problem than it is your problem. Your job is to make the world a better place in the best way you can. I want to take the last few minutes of today's program to talk about the most important holiday of the year, which is coming up this Saturday night and all day next Sunday. It is called Purim. Purim is literally the most important holiday of the year. Now, you might be thinking, hey, wait a second. I know about a holiday called Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement, but I perhaps have never heard of the holiday of Purim. Well, first of all, understand that which holiday is more important. If you look in the Torah, it says Yom HaKippurim. That's what Yom Kippur is called. And literally that means a day like Purim. So that means if Yom Kippur is the holiest day of the year and it's a day like Purim, then Purim is actually better. It happened about 2,400 years ago when the king of Persia, Ahasuerus, made a decree on advice from his viceroy, Haman, to destroy the Jewish people, to commit complete genocide. And due to a very curious set of results, circumstance that is all outlined in the book of Esther, so we find that God saved the entire Jewish people. It can be summarized in the classic Jewish joke known as, what is the essence of every holiday? They tried to kill us, we won, let's eat. That's exactly what we do. We have a big costume party it's going to be next Saturday night, and then all day Sunday. People go around, they drink, they dress up in costumes, they give gifts of food to their friends, they give charity to the poor, and they read the book of Esther. We read the book of Esther at nighttime, and we read the book of Esther on the daytime as well. And this is all about understanding that God works in mysterious ways. See, in the book of Esther that outlines this story of potential genocide, God's name is not even mentioned. That's a curious thing for one of the books of the Bible, not to have God even mentioned. And this is perhaps the reason why our custom is to dress up in costume. We are saying that God, we recognize on this day that you run the world. Even though there are many times that you are hidden and things look like coincidence, still, God, you are running the world. And what do? We dress up in costume as if to say, you can't see me, but I'm really here all the time. Just like sometimes I can't see the Almighty, but the Almighty is here all the time. It's a day of pure atonement. It's a day of joy because God saved us from ultimate genocide. And we stand up and we realize the reason God saved us is because en masse the Jewish people accepted the laws of the Torah. So why is it a better day than Yom Kippur? On Yom Kippur, it's a day of atonement. We say, God, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. And maybe God forgives us. On Purim, we recognize that God loves us beyond any reproach. and that the Almighty wants us to be successful, and it's much better to get to a love of God through joy, through eating, through drinking, through generosity to others, than it is to get to God through sadness and through repentance. So I want to wish you a beautiful week. I want you to prepare for Purim. Again, please come on by Young Israel Aish of Las Vegas, where you can experience a fantastic Purim program on Saturday night, and then again on Sunday. And please, remember at all times, live with joy, and have a blessed week. Please join me, Rabbi Yitz Wyne of Young Israel Aish of Las Vegas, for our Purim party this Saturday night, March 15th at 8:15 p.m. If you come once to shul this year, come on Purim. Free admission for everybody. There will be fun for the whole family. Come in costume and have a ball. Do you like to give advice?
Yes.
And tell me something. If you were going to give a few pieces of advice to someone that they should have a successful life, what would you tell them?
To be happy.
So you're going to ask me advice in terms of how to tell you how to get what you want from me.
Yes.
Exactly. Very nice. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Go to therabbishow.com today. Make a donation, and Rabbi Wyne will send you a free Jewish calendar for the new year, along with his personal blessings. Want more wine? Turn your radio to AM 720 KBWN, or go online to therabbishow.com to hear The Rabbi Show starting right after the news at 9 a.m.
My rabbi told me the most important commandment is to live life with joy as much as possible. Because if you have joy and enthusiasm and passion about life, if you really feel the Almighty's love at every corner, so then you will have the direction and the enthusiasm and the energy to fulfill all of the other commandments. Everybody has something they want. When you step into the world of Young Israel Aish, and you are welcomed by the right kind of community for you, so then all of a sudden you have support. You have support in terms of your personal growth, your spiritual growth. You have people you can share the good times with in your life, and people who you can share the difficult times in your life. And the result that we've seen over and over again is the people who become part of our community, they just have a much greater sense of life fulfillment. They have a sense of friendship, of connection with community, of connection with others. Thank you so much for joining me today in Life is Great. You know, there are so many people that are benefiting from this television program, from the Rabbi Show radio program, our YouTube broadcasts, and reading my book, Life is Great. I want to thank all of you, and I want you to know that the only way we can continue to distribute and to do these programs are through your generous contributions to therabbishow.com. So I'd like to encourage you today to go to therabbishow.com and make some kind of donation. Everything is appreciated in order to help us continue to spread these positive values and enrich and enhance other people's lives. Thank you.